You're listening to Mind, Body, Home with your host, Sara Ann. When I arrived in Texas, I knew not a soul. And when I left Pennsylvania, I left behind a community of women who were a huge part of my spiritual journey for over a decade. And, since then, I've officially come out of the spiritual closet, as they say. And a lot of the work I do with clients now is not just within their living spaces, but I'm also that supportive guide and friend on their spiritual journey as well. Because as you'll hear in a few moments, that process, especially in the beginning, can be a really lonely place until you find your people. So when I finally got settled here in Austin, finding that community was imperative because, I'm still on that journey. I mean, aren't we all, really? I wanted to be very open about the type of community and support that I was looking for, and that was when I was introduced to Shawn. Our connection was immediate and beautiful. We both said that we've certainly crossed paths in past lives, and I have to say that Shawn is one person that I am certainly sad to be leaving here in Austin. I feel our time together was cut way too short now that I'm moving again in just a few short months. In today's episode, Shawn and I really dig into the importance of community, especially in healing. We also dive into one of my favorite topics, intuition, and how it can support and supplement your holistic wellness journey. We also speak candidly about our own struggles being business owners and raising a family, all while having a spiritual awakening. Shawn has always been passionate and dedicated to the wellness and healing of the body, mind, and spirit. Shawn is a Reiki master teacher and a master in emotional freedom technique, otherwise known as tapping. She's also certified in breathwork, meditation, and NLP. In addition, Shawn has in-depth training in cryotherapy, psychic development, mediumship, flower essences, and biofield tuning. As you'll hear soon, Shawn has many tools in her toolkit. Please enjoy my conversation with my sweet friend, Shawn Matesic-Dykes of Synchronicity Cryo and Wellness. Welcome, Shawn, to the Mind, Body, Home podcast. It's so lovely to see your face. You are like a ray of sunshine. You're always smiling, and you always have red lips, and I love it. Oh, I'm so happy you're here. I really want the audience to meet you, and I'm so grateful you said yes to recording with me. Thank you.
I'm so excited to be here. I instantly knew you the first time you walked in. No, this is awesome. This connection has been fabulous.
It really has been. And I guess I can start there just to let the listeners know how we met. I am new to Texas. You are born and raised in Buda, which is where we are. And for the first time, probably ever, I sort of just put it out there, like who I was, why I'm here, and who I'm looking for. I just created a post and was just, this is me. I'm new to the area. I'm working on my spiritual and self-development, and I'm looking to meet some people who are doing the same. And I think that was like the first time I kind of came out of the spiritual closet, like in a public way. And, the response was lovely, and someone had tagged you, just your name, and you were like, hey, that's me, let's meet.
Yep.
So just from that response alone, I knew that a friendship was about to develop. So here we are.
Yeah. So for me, and I can only speak from my perspective and what I feel. Community is everything when you're on the spiritual journey. So having people that you align with energetically is just, it's everything. It's everything. And we all have our different aspects, right? And then we come together and it just makes this perfection. But we need community. And I think a lot of times on this journey, and not just in spirituality, in every aspect of whatever we're doing, whatever career it is, I think it's real easy to get caught up on, well, no, I'm doing it better or they're doing it better, but we all have our perfect magic. So that's why I want to reach out to everybody and do as much with them as I can because we're powerful together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, I know from my experience, when you first dip your toe into that journey, we'll call it, of spiritual healing and transformation, you do feel like an outsider. It's kind of a scary thing because for most people, and well, I'll say for some people, but for me personally, that required stepping away from a lot of family and friends. And in my case, like a whole state, like I moved across the country, right? And I felt to start stepping into that new person I wanted to become after doing so much of that work and integrating it into my life. And that's why it felt a little easy for me to just put myself out there like that because nobody knew me. Right. And that's a scary thing to do, I think, for so many people that are just beginning that. And so, what I love about you, and it shows right off the bat in first meeting you, is you are about come, come to me, people. I will care for you. I will love you. I will support you. And you exude that. Like that just flows naturally from you. And so, one, I wanted to take the opportunity to tell you that I'm grateful for that. But I see it too in just the community that you have already created, and you have connections to people that are all in this together. And I love what you're creating around that.
Yeah. I just believe in community. Like we're, for centuries we lived in community, in tight knit communities, not the definition of what a community is today. But if you think about it, we had like the sewing circles, we had the women's, what was it? I haven't read it yet, but about the red tent. Yes, when the women would menstruate together and they raised their children together and they had support, and not just women, but men too. They put up barns together as a community. We all cultivated our food together. I think that in the invent of social media, we've come away from that, and it's created more of like a competition type of like they're going to get my piece of the pie. Like I have to fight for that. And I vehemently fight against all of that. I don't look at anybody as competition. And I think we create more magic and we create more healing by treating everybody like they're our best friend until they prove they aren't. Right? Like you have to be careful on what you give away, but no, I want to know everybody's magic. It's
Yeah,
exciting. I learned something from everybody.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
know. So you're the owner of Synchronicity, and the wellness opportunities that community, because I really feel like that's primarily what your goal was, and you can speak to that more, but that's the sense that I get, even though you offer wellness modalities to the public, and now, you're transitioning a little bit away from that, which we'll get into. Um, you know, was that your first intention? Like, what inspired you? Like, why synchronicity? Why the cryo wellness? And you can maybe start with some of the things that you offer, and then maybe like how you sort of came to how that all started to come together for you.
Well, from the time I was born, I've always been wellness minded. It's just come naturally. I never felt like death was very far away. I've always been very connected to the spiritual world, just naturally. I would say I was a daydreamer. I was into fantasy, and now coming into adulthood and doing all the work that I've done, I found all that exists, right? And I started dancing at a very young age. I taught dance for 20 years, and dance connects you with your body, right? It connects you with a very strong mind body connection, right? So part that's part of my journey. That's part of how I ended up such a spiritual person. And then after that, I became a hairstylist and a makeup artist. So that's connecting with people. So I have 20 years under my belt doing that. And then I had my children naturally. Then after my last son, I had postpartum depression really bad, really bad. And had thoughts that I'd never had in my whole entire life. I was never suicidal. I was more on the scared part. I was terrified that something was going to happen to him, something was going to happen to me, to the point where I wouldn't even hold him. And that's when I picked up a yoga practice, and it literally changed my life. And I would say that's my gateway drug. That's what opened me up to spirituality. And then I got my Reiki certification. And again, that was another window to seeing the outside, that the non-physical that's out there. Like that was the first time that I touched it. And then I've kept going like an animal. I just can't get enough of it. But on a side note, my husband is more of a biohacker. He's more of the scientific side, not to say that I don't believe in science. I do believe in science, but I just tend to lean into more of the spiritual side. But he was the one that actually came up with the wellness center idea. Like he wanted to open up a cryotherapy center. And I was all about it because I was already kind of on that journey myself. And that's when I was like, okay, here's my platform where we can all come together because I believe in 100% holistic healing. 100%. Nobody could ever convince me any different. Like, not to say that there's not a place for doctors because I see them as a part of holistic because the definition of holistic is not just hippie woo woo chanting your way out of stuff. It's coming at an illness or a dis-ease from all different angles, right? Like nobody's the one expert. You have to try it all. You have to dance naked in the full moon. You have to take your herb. You have to go to the doctor and get the surgery. You have to, that's my interpretation of it. And I think a lot of times people approach it from, well, I'm an acupuncturist, so I heal you naturally just through acupuncture. Well, that could work for some people, but when you're coming at it from everywhere, I think that resonates with me a lot more. And so my dream with Synchronicity was to literally have like this big, huge book that when somebody came to me with a problem, I'd be like, who you need to talk to, plop, you need to call this person. They are an expert in blah, 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 blah. And seeing from that angle. Now, upon opening a business, that has been a little bit more of a challenge than I expected because my husband and I were not rich. And we absolutely had to keep working while we opened this. And it's just been too much. It's taken away way too much time with my children, my husband. I'm supposed to be living in joy with them, not being a used car salesman with wellness products. So we are transitioning to moving it to our home. And I'm absolutely going to continue seeing clients. I'm going to be incorporating my Reiki with our wellness services, which I'm very excited about. And in addition to that, I'm going to keep the Synchronicity community going on. I'm not going to get rid of our social media. I'm not going to get rid of our newsletters, all of that type of stuff. I'm going to continue that. And I'm going to talk about other practitioners that are around that I meet. And when they have deals, I'm going to be sharing that. So I think that's what I'm kind of shifting into. Yeah.
And I love that still that theme is sort of keeping the community together.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's like the forefront of your whole vision and business.
Absolutely.
So just for the listeners, I know that a lot of the modalities that you offer are becoming more mainstream. What is cryotherapy?
So what we have is a plunge. And so that's called cold water immersion, but it's still cryotherapy, but it's not as cold as when you get into a tank, for instance. Now, this is my own personal opinion. I absolutely think that the plunge is more beneficial, and science absolutely does support that, right? There is a discrepancy because there's more data behind cold water immersion than there is cryotherapy, which is where you get in the tank. With the cryotherapy, the stand-up, why we picked that modality is because all of the science that was behind it. But in addition to that, it was so much more expensive to own a machine and to operate a machine. And I think it's more of a trend rather than a great modality. There are benefits, but there's more benefits getting into the cold water. But I think it comes down to people prefer the stand-up cryotherapy because it's easier. Nobody wants to get into a freezing bathtub. But that's basically what it is. What it does is it lowers your inflammation. It creates cold shock proteins, which lower the functioning of the body. So we are helping with our mindset, obviously, first and foremost. That's where most of the data is. But we're also lowering your blood pressure. We're also slowing down the cell replication, which is one of my biggest things. One of my passions is cancer patients, because I've had a lot of family members that have dealt with that, friends and family. I realized very many years ago that there's got to be more out there to help us with keeping cancer at bay because it's out of control at this point. It's way, way, way out of control. And I just don't think it's necessary. We don't talk about prevention. We don't talk about simple things that you could be pairing with the traditional treatments of cancer, like cold water immersion, which what that does is it slows down the cell replication. And there's been studies upon studies upon studies that when you pair that with chemotherapy and radiation, not only do you have a way better bounce back from your treatments, but you also slow down the growth of the cancer. So the chemotherapy and radiation can do a better job at treating you. So simple things like that, that I just wish people knew.
Yeah. And so I know that me personally, I have a lot of hesitation about dipping into a cold tank. You have not convinced me yet. I mean, all of the stuff you're saying is very, yes, but I have, and I think I have a pretty strong mindset, but there is something about it that I still just cannot. I think like I had a past life of like freezing to death or something. So like cold water, even now, as hot as it's been, I don't go into the pool. Like I will go up and lay on the lounge chair, watch the kids swim. I have to be really hot to even go into a pool, like it's just something about me that I don't need to experience cold water. And so I'm curious how and I know there's a lot of people out there who are
No,
hesitant to
yeah.
try that. So how do you like warm them up to the idea?
Well, so our intuition is our best source. And I believe that wholeheartedly, first and foremost, with any advice you get, your intuition is what we should listen to first, right? So I'm going to say that. So if your body's telling you that you're not supposed to be getting in the water, maybe you need to dig into that. We need to ask more questions. We need to sit with that. We need to journal upon that. So is it just a fear, or is there maybe your body can't tolerate it? Like maybe that's a little sign from within you telling you that it's not for you. So I think we have to listen to those little pushes in our body.
Mm.
And I do with my clients. For the people that are curious about it, because I did not have that reaction. Like, yes, I was scared to get in the tub, but I absolutely wanted to. And I pushed myself. With people that are hesitant and are scared, we take it very, very, very slow. We start with the legs. The science actually shows that you can develop cold shock proteins by just putting in a limb. So we're talking about putting your arm in and keeping it there for 3 minutes. You're still developing, you're still impacting your blood pressure, you're still impacting your mindset, you're still impacting your cell replication, but you're not having to submerge into the water all the way. So there's other ways to kind of get into it, and then you get addicted to it. It's crazy.
Interesting. Yeah. Anytime I come, I always go for the hot treatments.
Yes.
Because you offer
Yeah.
the sauna, you offer the red light therapy, and those to me, I just feel so enveloped
Yeah.
and comfortable, and I feel so amazing after. So, and I think you're right. You have to listen to your intuition. Maybe there is some deeper level there, but maybe your body just needs something else. And
Absolutely.
so I love that
Yeah.
you offer those options.
Yeah.
For people.
Absolutely. On this journey, it's funny, it taught me what I don't want more than what I do want. And I feel like I keep saying this, my husband's like, "Pop, I feel like a used car salesman," because I wanted these modalities for people as options. And you can kind of tell the difference between the people that are getting information from inside of them and the ones that are just scared, right? So I can encourage a little bit more. Like I can read into that. I read energy. So I can usually tell the difference. But having it in a business setting the way that we did, we had to push for the services. That was never the type of healer that I was meant to be, right? Like I was supposed to be going on this journey with people. And I don't want to just sell these services to make money. It was never about that for me. And so I think you have to stay true to the healer that you are. You can't just find this business plan and make this business plan and be like, okay, I have to make X amount of money, because then it just feels really inauthentic to me.
100%. I've been there many times. We've had conversations even just
Yep.
recently, how just letting go certain aspects of business that,
Hmm.
you know, here's the thing with letting go. It's not really a letting go. It's just an integration,
Hmm.
right? And I really firmly believe that, we only know what we don't want. by
Yeah,
going through an experience that tells us
absolutely.
that, right?
Yeah.
So it's not all lost and it's not all failure and it's none of that, right? And I think
Yeah.
it's you were talking about mindset, it's just a mindset shift is really what all people need
Yes.
today.
Yeah,
I love
I
it.
agree.
Um, and I want to touch back on what you were saying about coming at illness or disease from different angles. And when you started saying that, I was feeling called to really bring it up. You and I have had this conversation before, specifically about cancer, about breast imaging. And my thoughts on all of that has changed significantly because
Quickly too, right?
quickly, yes,
Very quickly. Me too.
yes. And this is coming from an ex-clinical hospital worker who did mammograms for a decade and understood the importance, quote unquote, importance of having your yearly mammogram. And my mindset on that has shifted drastically. Now, I had to question myself a little bit because I'm 41. So I'm at the age of requiring a mammogram. So I had to really sit with, is this coming from, like you were saying, is this coming from a fear of having a mammogram? Is this coming from an authentic, intuitive insight, right? Like, I don't know that having an annual mammogram is the best course of action because for so many women, and I have personally witnessed it, it brings up fear and negative emotions. And those are the drivers of dis-ease and illness. And so I think this is an area where people can take ownership and control of their health and really start to question things like that because the healthcare system is not on our side. And, and it has made, and you're a great example of how difficult they make it for people who want to take a more holistic approach to their health.
Absolutely. I think the most important thing that you said right there is question. We're not talking about one of the things that my husband says all the time, and I love it. I love the saying, it's okay to change your mind. And two, you make a decision until you get more information, and then you take that information and you make a new decision. So I think that are we having the discussion of mammograms versus no mammogram? No, just give me more information, right? Like, show me the data that all of these extra tests are based on. Show me the proof that when you incorporate maybe some prevention practices, that the breast cancer is still going skyrocketing. Why has this industry not figured out how it's caused yet? We're in 2024. We should know exactly what causes breast cancer, and we still don't know the answer to that. Like, I think it's more about questioning, wait a minute, why am I supposed to do this? And getting answers, solid answers. Yeah.
Absolutely. And just the momentum of a clinical workup.
Uh-huh.
And it's called a workup. I mean, think about that. They need to work it up. It's okay,
Yes.
they found this. Now here's the
Yeah.
next step. They're working you up and they're literally working you up emotionally.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of
Absolutely.
driver behind that.
There's a
I
lot
just
of money behind
yeah. Yes, and I just feel really called to just express it.
it.
And again, like you said, I'm not saying don't get a mammogram. I'm just
No,
saying be mindful of how you're approaching
absolutely.
your health.
And how it's impacting you. Yeah. And listen to your body. Our bodies are right on every time. If you sit with yourself and simply get into your space and listen to your body and be like, show me, yeah. And you feel how your body feels and how it reacts and show me, no. Just starting that simply and then testing it, right? Is my name Shawn? See how your body reacts, right? It's that simple. Just work with that for a few weeks and then you can ask your body what it needs all the
Yeah.
time. Is this thing that I'm about to eat, is this good for me? Sit there, listen to your body. Like, we have these amazing connections that we don't use. But I think for centuries, going back to our community that we had for centuries, I think somebody just said, I was watching TikTok the other day and somebody made a comment about how we just had hot showers like in the last 50 years. So if you think about it, that people live more with nature, more in the communities. And it wasn't that long ago, right? It wasn't that
Yeah.
long ago. But if we would just live more mindfully, I think our bodies would not need all of those interventions.
Yeah. I love that. And I love what you said about just asking yes and no questions with your body. It's like you could almost imagine your body as a pendulum,
Absolutely.
right? Like I know when I
Absolutely.
started my intuition development, we'll call it, and really starting to practice listening to that, I would use a pendulum to kind of help
Yeah.
guide, but I've never heard anyone say to actually sit with the body. And I'm learning more about that now. And with somatics, that's a huge part of wellness integration now too. And yeah, that's amazing. That's a great exercise for people that maybe
Absolutely.
just are starting to question things.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it's okay to change your mind. We
It's
should
okay.
always change our mind. We should never keep it solid. Like science says this. Well, science doesn't even have definitive yeses and nos. Like people forget about that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, everything evolves. And
Absolutely.
so does
And
your
when you get
decision.
more information, yeah. Yep.
Right. Love that perspective. So you have a lot of tools under your belt. You have Reiki, NLP, EFT,
I
everything you're
like to
doing with
try a little bit
synchronicity.
of everything.
Yeah, I love that. So what are you working on anything new now?
Not at the moment. I'm gonna take the summer to rest and be with my children because the shop absolutely, yeah, just exhausted me and exhausted our family. And so I'm gonna take the summer to really be with them and dig into that. And I will still see my clients, but just on a much smaller scale. I but I've always wanted to dig into medical intuition a little bit more because when I do Reiki sessions, that just naturally comes through already. And then I also want to do some past life regression therapy training. And because I mean, that leads to lots of issues. If we have stuff from past lives that we're holding on to, that's definitely going to cause some issues. Why do we have fears that we have? A lot of times we can find a lot of answers from that. And
Yeah.
my approach to healing too is a little bit different. I'm very careful to not tell people what to do. And I think that in some of my experiences when I've done, healing sessions with people, with practitioners, it always turns me off when people are like, well, you have to, walk this way and do this and do it just the way that I did. That's your path to enlightenment. I'm very careful to encourage people to find their own path. They have to go inside. I will walk right along with them, but you have to do the journey. I don't I mean, I can see parts of what are inside of you, but the whole thing about spirituality, that it's such a personal journey and you have to take those steps. Nobody can do it for you.
Absolutely.
I think that we're in a place, I feel very compelled to talk about rest.
Let's do it. I love
Because
that.
I am in that right now. I think that we live in a very hustle and bustle society where we have to work and we have to do this and we have to show up for people when we don't want to. And we have to be, oh my gosh, the best mother on the planet with perfect dressed children who say the perfect thing all the time and eat the perfect diet. And, all of that, we have all of these pressures. So we have the work pressures, we have the family pressures, we have the relationship pressures, we have all of that. And we don't leave time to just sit and be in what we need to be in. Maybe we need to feel sorry for ourselves for a little bit. Maybe we truly need the rest. Maybe we need to sit in silence so that we can get our messages through. Because if our mind is too full of all of the things that we're supposed to be doing, we don't take the time to really hear where we're supposed to be on our path. And sometimes pause is our path.
Yes.
And that's okay. We don't have to keep going and keep doing and doing and doing because sometimes literally just pausing and just living and just being in that moment, that's where you're supposed to be. That's part of the spiritual journey. So that's been coming through for me a lot. And so many people that I've been talking to are experiencing the exact same thing right now.
Yeah. I know I have. And I've heard it. No action is action.
Ah,
Right.
absolutely.
And I've been taking pause after pause, I feel like. And I've talked about this on the podcast probably for the last year, like I'm going to take the summer off and I'm going to just be present with my family. And then, oh, now we're moving. Now I'm going to take a break from doing this work because, you know, my energy needs to go towards supporting the family and the house and the move and all of that. And then once we were getting, we're getting settled now, I was looking for work and now the universe is like, nope, we're going to put you back on pause, And I really attribute that to my intuition, like knowing that that's where I need to be, even though I might try to like sneak away and go do some work. I listen to that,
I'm in
nope,
the same
go
place.
back.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I've literally, I'm in the place, I still do hair a couple of times a week. And then I did hair and makeup for weddings. So I'm still doing a little bit of that, but I'm fighting myself to not create anything else right now, to literally just be in it. And it is a struggle for me too, because I was raised, you just got to go, you got to do more, you got to fight harder, and I can't do any of that right now because I keep hearing over and over again that I can't. So I think it's okay. We need to embrace it more. We need to not
Yeah,
shame people for pausing.
no,
And I
not at
think in
all.
society we do.
Or shame ourselves because
Big time.
for myself, I think I shared this with you. Like I've been working 2 jobs at least since I was 16 years old. I mean, for me, getting a job was freedom.
Yeah, me too.
It was freedom
Yeah.
from, a rigid household where I wasn't allowed to
Yeah.
do anything. It was a social part of my
Yep.
life. So that is what I always attributed to it. And so I've had to done a lot of work around that too, and my workaholism and my
Yep.
perfectionism and all of
Yep.
that.
Yep.
But that is my origin. And now again, I have that awareness that that's where it originated, but it's not serving me now. Like it served
Yeah.
me then, it's not serving me
Yes.
now. And so now that I have the awareness, I'm able to take the pause. It's not easy sometimes, but
Mm.
it's just something that needs to break within. So,
Well, and we fight against the fear of pausing, right?
yeah.
We're gonna miss out. We're gonna miss that opportunity. We're gonna be broke. We're gonna lose our house. Like there's so much programming in that it's hard to break free from that. But when
Yeah.
you're getting that little voice in the back of your head where things are kind of lining up magically the way that they're supposed to, and you're still getting that message of pausing, we need to pause. We we need to pause
Yeah.
and rest.
Rest.
Yeah.
Love it. So, before we wrap up, you mentioned you're moving your studio or shop to your home. And I had done a little mini sort of feng shui of the shop for you. And you were like, you know what? That wasn't for the shop. I think that was for my home because you integrated a lot of the resources and tools that I talked about with you at home. Do you want to speak a little bit about that? Just,
Absolutely. So the energy of where we were was never my favorite energy. But as far as commercial real estate goes and being a very small business, like a very small business, we had to do what we could do. And that never sat well with me either, because I think I'm kind of an impatient person. I want to make it everything that I want it to be immediately. So I never really got the chance to incorporate a lot of that stuff into the shop, but I've been able to incorporate it in my home. And I've gotten 2 readings. I get regular Reiki myself, even though I do Reiki. And then I also had an astrology reading, and both of them came to me and said that my work was attached to my home. And I was like, okay. So, how many coincidences can you get before, or synchronicities
yeah.
can you get before you listen, right? I'm getting better. It's an ongoing journey for all of us, right?
Right.
We're always trying to practice what we preach. So yeah, I feel so excited about this next step in my journey. I've thought about so many different things. I think I'm going to start training Reiki because I'm a firm believer that Reiki should be for everybody, right? Like you should be Reikiing. You wake up and with a headache in the morning, you should be trained in Reiki to work on your own head. I
Right.
just think it's such an easy tool for your toolbox. That's one thing that I didn't mention earlier is that I love to talk about tools for your toolbox. I look at spiritual training or just mind body training, all of those are all these different tools that I have in my toolbox to make my life easier and make it better. So I just think I'm going to start training with the Reiki. I'm going to do those extra trainings at some point. I promised myself I'm not going to do any of that during the summer. These are all just plans for in the future. We will get the recovery room healing modality set up at some point. We're going to start very small. It's going to be like a converted garage, and then eventually we'll make it into a full-on room. But I've thought about doing little mini retreats, having different, inviting all different healers, and it'd be a small, intimate gathering with like 6 men or women and include the services. But whoever comes in and wants to collaborate with me, like they lead them through their portion of it. We all come together, kind of like healing circles, but it resonates with me to have smaller, intimate things because my means of healing is to connect with people. And when you have a full room or too big of a crowd, it's just hard. It's just harder for me.
Yeah, I get that. It just feels
Yeah,
better, I think, on both ends.
absolutely. So I'm really excited about it. I've been very careful to not depend on my healing modalities and the way that I approach things to support my family anymore.
I love
So I'm
that.
supporting my family with my other job. And this is a bonus. And we have to have an exchange of energy because I have to do that for my own energy. But at the same time, I don't want that to cross paths because I think that's, for me, that's where it's going to get skewed.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's smart, and I love that you're honoring that. You know that about your situation and yourself. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it. Well, I'm excited to see what's next. Where can people find out more about you? All the things.
So our website is synchronicitytx.com. And like I said, that's not going to change right now. We have it set up so that you can book services through us. That will still continue, but I'm going to tweak it to where it's more of like a wellness community. I want people to know about the services that are spiritual, but also based in science, kind of a combination, half and half.
And I feel like it's worth mentioning here too. Have you ever studied the works of Ernest Holmes?
No, but I'm
Science of Mind.
it.
It is a beast,
Okay.
but it's basically religious science,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very focused on the mind,
Uh-huh.
body, and the spirit. And your husband will love it too, having
Oh,
that
I'm
like
sure.
science background. Oh, it's brilliant. It's
Yeah.
brilliant. You're gonna love it. I have many books of Ernest Holmes. He is not talked about enough
Yeah.
in the new age, new thought arena.
Yes.
He's amazing. So for listeners and for you, dig into
Yeah.
him. He's great. He's great. Well, thank you, Shawn.
Thank you.
Everything, all the access to you will be in the show notes for anyone interested to find you and work with you. I love your presence. You are beautiful. I am so grateful
Thank you.
our paths have crossed and all of the good things. So thank you for
Yeah.
being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just a note on the conversation regarding breast cancer and annual mammogram screening. I want to be very clear that I'm in no way advocating for not getting an annual mammogram or any age-appropriate cancer screening that we have guidelines for here in the US. What I am saying is that taking ownership of your health journey means that you have a role and a right to ask questions, to discern, to advocate for yourself if something feels off. That you're not doing anything just because someone or some agency tells you you should. I'm an ex-mammographer. I've worked in the clinical environment for over a decade and have held the hands of many women whose lives were saved by a mammogram. But what I am stressing now and in my conversation with Shawn is simply asking yourself how you might be allowing the emotional energy of any medical testing or any additional workup or the family history or risk factors. How are you letting all of that affect your outcome? A proven universal law is that where attention goes, energy flows, good or bad. I'm simply saying be aware of your inner voice, your emotional output, the state of your fear, your anxiety. This is taking a holistic approach to your own wellness. Taking an affirmative role in your own healing journey or wellness journey can be supported by your intuition. I've said it so many times that knowing how to hear my own voice is the greatest gift I've ever given myself. I have become my own personal guru, my closest best friend, and given the context, sometimes my own best medical advice. More information on Shawn and her offerings, even though they're evolving, are available in the show notes. You can connect with Shawn on social media at Beautiful by Shawn or at Synchronicity TX. Please support the Mind Body Home podcast by leaving a positive review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or subscribing on YouTube. You can always connect with me as well on social media at Jade Scott Design. And just a reminder, the summer moving sale is still going on at jadescottdesign.com. Right now, you can take 40% off your entire purchase and receive free shipping. No code is necessary. Your discount is automatically applied at checkout. A link to the shop is provided in the show notes. Lastly, be sure you're on my email list. I'll be soon sharing my offer for Mind Body Home alignment coaching, and we'll be opening my books very soon. Like Shawn, I've taken the summer off to be with family and to prepare for our next move to Florida. However, I've also been working on my coaching offer. I'm really excited, you guys. I think this is going to be an amazing, amazing pathway for so many people. Until next week, I am sending you so much love and gratitude.